All right, if you're part of the Luxembourg fund industry, you know the drill with BCL statistical reporting. It's a super high-stakes game. One tiny slip-up, and you're staring down the barrel of delays, rejections, and just a massive headache. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain on this whole process, break down all the tricky parts, and show you how to nail it on the first try.
And look, the BCL does not mess around. This quote, it's straight from their own documentation, and it really sets the stage. The stakes are just incredibly high, and not just for one fund, but for the reputation of Luxembourg's entire financial center. You got to remember, this data feeds into huge national and European economic analyses, so getting it right isn't just a goal, it's an absolute must.
So what is it that makes these reports so tough? I mean, it's not just about plugging in numbers. It's about taking a complete snapshot of a fund's entire financial life. We're talking every asset, every liability, every single security, and then squeezing it all into this incredibly specific, unforgiving format. It's this monthly or sometimes quarterly gauntlet, and there is absolutely zero room for error.
Okay, so the whole challenge, it really boils down to two big technical hurdles you have to get over before the BCL even starts looking at your numbers. First, that file name has to be perfect, dot for dot, character for character. Second, the data inside that file has to follow an unbelievably rigid structure. Get either of these wrong and bam, your report gets rejected before anyone even looks at the data.
All right, let's tackle that first hurdle, shall we? Getting the file name exactly right. This isn't just typing something in. It's like a science, and every single character has a specific job to do.
Yeah, I know. At first glance, this thing just looks like a random jumble of letters and numbers, right? It can be pretty intimidating. But trust me, each part has a very specific meaning. It tells the BCL exactly what's inside this file and who it's from. But let's actually break it down piece by piece.
Okay, let's start with the easy bit, the 202512 part. That simply tells the BCL that this data is for December of 2025. This makes sure your report is filed for the right time period. Pretty straightforward, right?
Okay, next up, the reporter ID. This is all about telling the BCL who is actually submitting the file. In this case, the B means it's a bank, and that long number is a unique code from the CSSF. This could be anyone, really, the management company, the fund administrator, maybe even the fund itself.
Now, this next part is super important, the declarant ID. This is a crucial difference. Think of it this way. The reporter is the one sending the file. The declarant is who the data is about. Here, the O stands for a UCITS fund, and that number drills down to the specific fund and even the specific compartment. This is how the BCL keeps tabs on everything at a really granular level.
And last but not least, we've got the timestamp. This tells the BCL the exact date the file was made and which version it is for that day. So if you spot a mistake and need to send a correction, you just send a new file with the same date, but change the sequence number to 002. And here's a little detail you can't forget. That sequence number has to reset to 001 every single day.
Whew! Okay, so you've nailed the file name. Awesome. But we're not done yet, not by a long shot. Now we've got to peel back the cover and look at the data structure inside the file.
So everything has to be in this specific XML format. The BCL actually calls it a tree-structured menu. The best way to picture it is like a family tree. Every single data point is like a leaf that has to hang on the exactly correct branch. So for instance, the reporter ID is a branch and it has two leaves, the institution type and the institution code. It's all very logical, but man, is it unforgiving. And you gotta understand, this is nothing like your everyday spreadsheet. Every single data point, every asset, every liability, every country code has to be placed on its perfect branch in the tree, and you have to use the exact codes that the BCL specifies. There's zero room for creativity here. It's all about sticking to the rules so the data can be analyzed correctly across the entire country.
So let's imagine you did it. You conquered the file name, you mastered the XML structure, you'd think you're home free, right? Well, not quite. Now your actual data has to survive what I like to call the verification gauntlet. It's a whole series of tough, automated checks.
And these are just a handful of the checks they run. First off, Basic Accounting 101, do total assets equal total liabilities? It also checks that you've used valid codes for things like country, currency, sector, even maturity. It even cross-references your numbers with other reports you filed to make sure everything lines up perfectly. Even one tiny mismatch, and the whole thing gets kicked back to you.
So you can probably see how trying to do all this manually, wrestling with naming rules, trying to build XML files from scratch, all while hoping you didn't make a single typo, it's just asking for trouble. It almost always leads to rejections and delays. But the good news is, there is a better way. A streamlined approach that basically builds accuracy in from the very start.
Okay, so this is where we shift gears a bit. We've talked a lot about the problem, so now let's talk about the solution. Let's look at how the right technology can take this super high-risk, high-stress process and turn it into something that's actually manageable and, dare I say, efficient.
The real key here is using specialized tools that are built for this exact purpose. And a perfect example of this are the Excel templates you can get from providers like Fund XP. They're designed from the ground up to do all the heavy lifting and navigate the BCL's rules for you.
So, you're probably wondering, how does something like this actually help? Well, first up, you get guided data entry. So instead of trying to memorize hundreds of codes, you're just picking from pre-filled drop-down lists. Second, and this is a total game changer, it performs live checks on your data as you type. Third, once all your data is in and checked, the tool automatically builds that perfect file name and generates the valid XML file for you. And finally, the best part, you can often file directly from the tool through secure channels.
And check this out. Here's a perfect example of one of those live checks in action. In this template, someone has typed in a security identifier, an ISIN, that just isn't in the right format. See that? The system immediately flags it with a super clear error message. The mistake gets caught right away before you even think about submitting it, not after you get that dreaded rejection email from the BCL. And really, that's the dream, isn't it? 0 errors, 0 rejections, and 0 reporting delays. It completely transforms the job from a stressful, reactive task into a calm, proactive workflow, making sure your data is right the very first time.
So, here's the bottom line. BCL reporting is just not optional. Your data is absolutely critical to the market, which means your process has to be built for accuracy from the ground up. The only question left is yours? Thanks for tuning in.